Glynn, I remember you explaining to me the way you respond to people when they complain about the Sand Bushmen turning up at Klaus Lodge wearing their jeans. Do you want to just remind me of that story? 'Cause it really brings out the essence of the problem.
Harold, it's an issue that strikes to the question of hypocrisy, I guess. Maybe that's a bit strong a word. Maybe it's lack of understanding. But it is nevertheless amazing for me. We run a lodge in the Khalkhadi owned by the Kumani San, the Bushmen, as you rightly say, and the Mir community. And we have a cultural village, which is a place of work that the community go to. And it is correct that on occasions we have the Bushmen going down there dressed in their civilian type clothing or their t-shirts, a pair of trousers, as opposed to in their traditional clothing of a chai and a sort of naked top. Um, and we've never insisted that they should do one or the other. We've left it up to them because it's their spirit that prevails, and they're the ones who assess the weather, assess the mood they're in, and decide how it is they want to be attired for their workplace. And part of that is a demonstration to clients of how they carry out their art and crafts and manufacturing them. And that is from time to time almost dismaying when we have clients say how disappointed they were because they arrived there only to find the Bushmen dressed in their civilian clothes, and this is not a proper display of their culture, and um, how can this be allowed to happen? And they find it just sort of unacceptable, really. And I often respond and to say to guests, that may be true in their opinion, but then they must know how disappointed I am when I go to the Netherlands and I don't see everybody walking around in their wooden shoes, their clogs, or I go to Germany and I don't see everybody walking around in Munich in their lederhosen. But it really was brought home to me even more strongly when I was in the UK a couple of years ago. And our daughter and grandson took us out for a day's outing, my wife and I, to a castle where we had the opportunity to witness the traditional beef eaters. And they were in this kitchen and they were cooking up a storm over a fire and they were wearing their traditional clothing and everything else. And I was reminded of the similarity with the question of Cast Lodge when, having seen all of this happen, I then walked outside with my grandson to see one of the beef eaters having been dressed in his cloak, disrobing in the parking lot and mounting his bicycle, having put his cloak and his shoes and whatever it is that he was wearing into the front carrier of his bicycle and riding off into the sunset. I thought, how traditional is this? How culturally accurate is this? Perhaps I should have expected the beef eaters to live like they did in the times of King Henry or whoever it was. And that's, as I say, it's part of the hypocrisy, because why is it that we expect people who live in the third world environment to live as they did 100 years ago, just so that it can benefit us in terms of what we expect and what we want to see? Because they live in a modern economy. They too aspire to wearing Nike sand shoes or using Nokia telephones or whatever it might be. And so to just expect that because you are in a country like South Africa or in an area like the Kalahari, that you're going to find Bushmen traditionally walking around in their highs, it's not going to happen. There are some who will dress like that, but that's part of their marketing. It's the way they do it, that they recognize the value that their historic culture and their attire brings to their ability to sell their crafts. So that, like everybody else, they're just in the same way as the castle in the UK charged an admission fee so we could go and see beefeaters in their traditional outfits. So the Bushmen wear their traditional clothes. But you can't expect them to live like that simply because that's what you want to see as someone from a Western environment. So I think that we need to ourselves take a reality check and understand how important it is to appreciate people's cultures and to recognize that their indigenous culture and their indigenous knowledge is their currency. It's what earns them a living. And they maybe aren't equipped to work as scientists in certain places, but they are equipped to tell the most amazing science stories of the environments in which they live. So if we can do something about helping to educate guests to realize how important it is for them to appreciate what it is they're seeing. I'm going to end simply by saying that I would challenge anybody from a Western environment to sit on a blanket in the red sand of the Kalahari with a pile of ostrich eggshells and a little steel pin and a piece of cotton and drill a hole in that ostrich egg in a manner that will be that will see the ostrich egg survive the drilling process and become part of a bracelet. I can promise you, you would be so vexed at the end of it at how many of those ostrich shells you broke, because it is a skill that it is amazing. And that's the reality of understanding how people live, how they earn a living, and what their culture means to them.
So, Glynn, it seems to me that in reality, these people have simply turned up too late, haven't they? They should have come along 100 years ago, or in the UK case, probably 300-400 years ago, if they really wanted to experience London the way it was when the beefeaters went about their daily lives wearing those inordinately ornamented costumes.
Harold, you've taken the exact phrase I love to use at Clark's Lodge, and to say almost exactly that to guests who are unhappy, and to say, if you wanted to see the Bushmen as they lived 100 years ago, then you've arrived 100 years too late.
Thanks, Glynn. I think that very eloquently explains what the problem is.